Welcome to Your Yes-Filled Life. I'm Brenda Winkle, an intuitive leadership coach and somatic guide for high performers, high achievers who want more freedom, ease, joy, and energy. You are a visionary leader, driven, intuitive, and ready for more. More flow in your work, more presence and joy in your life and relationships, more trust in yourself and the decisions you make every day. Here, we explore the intersection of intuition, leadership, and energetic sovereignty, blending practical strategy with energetic alignment so you can create success that feels deeply fulfilling at work, at home, in your relationships, and in your own well-being. You'll hear inspiring stories, practical strategies, and high-level conversations designed to help you integrate the woo into your daily life. Because when your energy is aligned, everything flows. Ready to elevate how you lead and live? Start by downloading my free energy audit at brendawinkle.com/audit and discover what's fueling or depleting you. Let's do this. Your yes-filled life starts now. Welcome to Your Yes-Filled Life. I'm your host, Brenda Winkle. Today on the podcast, we are diving into a concept that I think probably most of us, if not all of us, have dealt with, and that is self-sabotage. I'm so excited for you to meet my guest, Kris Driskill. Now, before we dive into all things around Kris, and you are in for such a treat, I'm so excited to tell you something. Now, I know that you're probably here to live or lead differently in a way that feels more congruent, more aligned, to give you the spaciousness and the efficiency that you want in your life, more connection to others, to your own intuition. So this is going to be for you. There's a 3-day workshop called Clear Your Energy, Trust Your Intuition. And this workshop is a live chakra workshop for empaths, intuitives, light workers, seekers who are ready to deepen into who they truly are. You see, here's the thing. Your chakras control everything in your life. They control your energy. They even have an impact on your body. So let's say, for example, that you are noticing a little bit of depression and you're also noticing that it feels more difficult to take a breath than it typically is, and you're experiencing a little shoulder pain. It can actually be an indication that your heart chakra is out of balance. And in this 3-day workshop, it's going to be 90 minutes each day. We're going to be diving into the simple things that you can do that will really impact your ability to clear and balance your chakras. For example, I'm going to be teaching you the one thing that can support every single chakra, and you have it in your kitchen. I promise you, you do have it in your kitchen. It's so simple. I'm going to be teaching you the specific sound that you can make to support each chakra, and I'm going to be sharing with you the number one way that you can clear and balance your chakras, and I promise you, it's so much simpler than you think. So Clear Your Energy, Trust Your Intuition is a 3-day live chakra workshop, especially for you. Now, this isn't about doing more. It's about learning how to honor your energy, reconnect with your body so that you can trust your inner knowing with ease. If you're stepping into a season of more softness, more sovereignty, and more self-trust, this is your next step. We're going to gather live on Zoom May 20th through 22nd. We'll be live each day from 5:30 p.m. Pacific to 7 p.m. Pacific. Yes, it's prioritized for those of you who are working during the day, so you can come relax in the evenings together. Head over to brendawinkle.com/chakra, CHAKRA, to learn more and to join us. It's $111 each. And the reason for this is not some sales webinar. This is an actual workshop. It's a live class. And because I want you to treat it like a live class, there are no replays offered. Come join us and learn all about your chakras. I'm so excited to introduce you to today's guest. Christina Driskill is an opera singer turned transformational coach and business consultant. Kris Driskill's lighthearted yet deeply impactful approach has empowered creative entrepreneurs to enjoy the process of running their business with ease, fun, and flow since 2007. Kris's focus on self-sabotage is backed by the evidence-based research of positive intelligence. She's also certified in business coaching, money mindset coaching, and serves as a Gene Keys guide, in addition to holding a certification in social emotional arts from UCLA's Department of Integrative Medicine. When not working, she can be found in the woods or being herded by her overly time conscious mini Aussie, Jasper. I am so excited to introduce you to Kris Driskill. Hi, Kris. Thank you for joining me.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure and honor, Brenda. Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, and we match. It's like we got the universal memo of the color of the
Exactly.
day.
I know
Yeah,
it's you would think we planned it, but I'd call that synchronicity. I think it's when you align with things, it just happens like that. So I love it. We're
that's
already
right.
starting off well. We're starting off well.
That's right. That's right. Before we dive in too much further, I have a question for you. What is
Right.
one thing you either did or did not do that has led to your yes-filled life?
Well, I can tell you what I did do. Well, it's actually both. I can tell you what I did and didn't do in one sentence. I decided to be unapologetically authentic.
Mm,
And I
okay.
stopped worrying about whether I was quote unquote doing it right or not, and whether anybody else would approve. So,
Oh, oof. That is so good. And, I think that you just summed up that is so powerful. It seems simple, and it is simple, not easy though.
no, especially when this doesn't describe everybody, but it certainly describes me. When you have a very strong primal link to acceptance and approval, it's difficult to step into your truth. It's difficult to accept that the best and most meaningful and useful version of yourself, during your time on this planet is to be that version of you and not the one that you grew up thinking you should be, what people told
Mhm.
you should be, what an industry told you should be, what would make you look good, what would make people, think you're successful or doing a good job. I just decided that operating under any premise other than my own truth was actually not only not in service to me, but it wasn't in service to anyone else. And I was afraid for a long time to really step into that kind of feeling of shining my light as bright as I could. And I think because of that acceptance, approval, that DNA link, that
Mhm.
strong primal link, I was always afraid that it would be too much. I was told it was too much. you know, you're too this, you're too that, you're too,
Mhm.
something.
Mhm.
And I was so afraid of being in that space, being too much for other people, not being accepted by others potentially, that I felt like I held myself back for a long time. And I just got to a point where I realized that that's not my truth. It is not in full service to my place here. And I just had to give up. I had to give up the need to help everyone have the kind of experience that I thought would be okay for them. I had to allow them to have their own experience. And
Ooh,
if
yeah.
I'm too much, then you can either keep scrolling on by or turn around or put your sunglasses on because that's not my job. And this is what I realized. And this is, I think, true for all of us. It's not my job. It's not any of our jobs to try to fit ourselves into what will make everybody else comfortable. We need
That's
to we
right.
need to express our full selves and our full authenticity and allow people to have their own experience about that, whether they are
Mm.
drawn to us because that's in alignment for them, or whether they're not drawn to us, and realizing that that's okay. It's perfectly okay. Just like a
That's
piece of
right.
art,
That's
right?
right. And there's something that you said that I just want to kind of double down on. if you're trying to manage everybody's experiences of you, and there's an attempt to want to be liked or accepted by everyone, it's like giving away a little piece of your soul to everyone, because the truth is, we can't make everyone happy. And the minute we do, we are giving away little pieces of ourselves, because what person A wants is different from what person B wants, is different from what person C wants. And it's just a myth that we can even do that in the first place.
Well, and let's be honest. If we're going to be real, let's just step into some honesty right away here. If this is what we're doing, and in the name, and this is, I do a lot of work in self-sabotage, and that's one of my primary focuses, and this is really the saboteur of pleaser, right? If we are trying to and controller, if we're trying to control everybody
Mm-hmm.
else's
Mm-hmm.
experiences, right? But in the name of making them happy, making them feel okay or comfortable, what are we really doing? What we're really doing is saying, I need you to have a certain experience so that I feel uncomfortable, feel comfortable,
That's right. And that
right?
we
It's
don't
that's
realize
what
that.
it, no, it's one of these sneaky ways, these secret ways that we self-sabotage, saying that in the name of making other people happy, making sure that they have what they want, wanting them to have a certain experience, that what's really happening is that if you don't have that experience, then I'm going to feel hurt, disappointed, left out, disapproved of. And that's painful. And I don't want to have that experience. So I need you to have this experience. So we got to be
That's
honest.
right.
We have to look at like I said, this is a form of self-sabotage. We have to look at why we are in need of that for ourselves, and do the work to, to love ourselves through that, to move past the need to have others provide that for us. That's not their
That's
job.
right. It's not their job. My story begins like in childhood, where I could read a room. I could feel and sense things that other people couldn't. And when I realized that when the adults knew how much I actually was able to interpret with my intuition, and how that scared them, I took it underground and began to people please. And if you would have asked me, even into my 30s, it was for them. But the truth was, it's how it regulated my nervous system. Because if
Mm,
they felt safe, then I felt safe. So it was
exactly.
never about them.
Exactly. And I think these are kind of the hard truths that we don't come into until later in our lives, and when we are actively seeking to deepen our understanding of ourselves, to deepen our understanding of our purpose and our place here. We just know we have these experiences. And especially as a child, I mean, we know that, pretty much all of this survival-based instinct, all of the imprinting, all of these kind of saboteurs that we create for ourselves, and we all do, happens between birth and age 7.
Mm-hmm.
So, with our little minds trying to figure out how to navigate this place, we spend the beginning of our lives putting these kinds of things in places. Oh, I make adults uncomfortable. So let me back it up a little bit. I mean, I almost had the opposite experience. I made adults feel oohed and awed, right? I came from a background of performance. I was a professional opera singer for decades. And so I was a performer. Had a big personality. I would speak with the adults, and they would always ooh and ah over what I could do. It was the children that felt uncomfortable around me.
That's so interesting. And I came from a performance background as well. I was a choir
Yeah.
director for decades.
Yeah.
And so the performance part was where I would feel comfortable. I was
Yes.
performing. It was like a mask. And so I felt very comfortable with it. And I knew exactly how to create an immersive emotional experience, not only for my singers, but for the audience. And so that was just like so impactful. What I didn't realize I was doing was I was energetically tapped into myself. I wasn't tapping into any other energy sources around me, whether that's divine energy or God or whatever you call it. And it was all coming from me. It led to exhaustion and burnout and all the things like that. So, and I love that we have that in common, that musical
I know,
background.
I know. We don't only have beautiful colors in common. We have our music background in common as well. And that for me, and I didn't realize this until much later also, that is also for me where the start of my My stickler saboteur, my that perfectionist tendency, that desire to do right and well, because I had this natural talent, this inclination, whether it was grades in school or through music and performance, that when I did these things, I got lots of attention.
Hmm.
Lots of, like I said, the oohs and ahs. Oh, you're so amazing, you're so great. And so in my little child mind, with this very strong coming into this world with this very strong, primal acceptance approval link, my mind interpreted that. And of course, as a child, I didn't know I was even doing this. This was an unconscious
That's right. Hmm.
belief that was put into place. My little child mind said, oh, well, the better I do at this, the more love and acceptance and approval I seem to get. So I
Hmm.
need to be perfect. I need to do this, as perfectly as possible. And so that, desire to make everything right and being afraid of it not being right
Hmm.
really set in at a very early age. And I ended up doing my doctoral dissertation on performance anxiety and how the brain works for this reason. I saw that, I always got so nervous, even though people would tell me, "Oh, I could never tell. Oh, I didn't even know you were nervous." I was shaking like a leaf.
Hmm.
My
Hmm.
body reacted, so strongly to being put in those acceptance approval situations, which performance always was.
That's right.
Right. So, I developed this kind of love-hate relationship with it. I loved performing. I loved the art form. But I really hated that feeling of every single time, I step on a stage, open my mouth, put my body in front of people. It was just another one of those opportunities to be rejected.
Well, you're pointing
And
to a few important things here. One
mm,
is that there are certain disciplines, music being one of them, where there is nothing short of perfectionism allowed. Like it
yeah,
has to be perfect. There's no such thing as B plus music. You either do it perfectly and it's beautiful and people love to hear it, or you do it B plus and nobody attends because B plus in music is it's atrocious. It's absolutely atrocious. And so that perfectionism I relate to that so deeply, where we're taught by the discipline to be perfect.
we are
And,
taught by the industry to it's either right or wrong. P.S. You're mostly wrong. And this is the teaching style,
yes.
right?
Mhm.
That especially with the voice, and your background was with the voice as well, that we are teaching someone something that you can't see or touch,
That's right.
right? So there's a lot of trial and error. Yet I don't know about your experience, but my experience didn't really talk about, hey, we're going to have a lot of trial and error here. Hey, we're going to make mistakes. Hey, we're going to see what happens. There really wasn't a lot of that. There was a lot of no, 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 and occasional yes that you tried to hang on to and then try to recreate that yes and try to avoid the no.
Hmm.
So, I mean, that
Hmm.
really shifted the way that I became when I started teaching, when I taught at university and when I became a coach and started doing this kind of work as well. That was such an important experience, and I'm grateful for it because it taught me that, uh, you know, I did not want to share information in a way that shut other people down.
That's so
We
impactful.
already have enough self-sabotage going on. We
That's
already
right.
do it enough to ourselves. We don't actually need that supported by someone saying, "Yeah, you need to be judged at this moment while you're trying to learn, while you're trying to practice," right?
Hmm. Okay, so you've built this beautiful life and your successful career, powerful presence, and a calendar full of responsibilities that once lit you up, but lately something has made it feel just a little bit heavier. So let me ask you something. What if this was your moment to soften into a new way of leading? I'm Brenda Winkle, a psychic medium, somatic coach, and intuitive guide, and I work privately with high achieving women who are ready to trust themselves more deeply, to reclaim their energy, and lead from the inside out. In our one on one coaching together, you'll experience the kind of support that's both deeply spiritual and highly strategic. I'll bring my psychic gifts, mediumship, and somatic tools to help you move through emotional residue, to help you get really clear on what matters most to you, to help you clear your energetic field, and lead in a way that feels powerful, precise, and completely aligned with who you really are. Leadership can feel really lonely, but it doesn't have to. This isn't about doing more, it's about being more you. If you've been craving personalized support, intuitive insight, and energetic sovereignty, this is your invitation. Go to brendawinkle.com/coaching to learn more because your yes filled life, it starts the moment you say yes to yourself. So let's talk about the self-sabotage. You've
Mm,
identified some archetypes
yeah.
of self-saboteurs. Can we talk about and maybe list them out
Yeah,
and then we
sure.
can unpack each?
Sure. So I came into self-sabotage work and working with saboteurs through the work of Shirzad Shamin and his organization Positive Intelligence. And he wrote a book by that name. It's a New York bestseller, wonderful, incredible book about his experience and how he came into this research. And through his research, he developed this understanding of these 10 saboteurs that we have. And the top saboteur he calls the judge. And these are archetypes, right? So it's not like this is, I mean, there's many archetypal systems. So you may have heard these terms through different systems as well. But when he goes through the research, he basically explained how through factor analysis, like these are the 10. These are the only 10 that are going to create self-sabotage for us. Anything that we are doing that's creating a negative experience for ourselves or suffering for ourselves is one of these coming from one of these 10 things.
Mm-hmm.
So the top one is the judge. I've named all of my saboteurs and given them characters. They just kind of evolved from my study and work of this. My judge's name is Marty.
Mm.
And each one of their names has an acronym to it. So Marty stands for makes awful remarks to you. And Marty's kind of cold and condescending, but in a very convincing kind of way that it's real stuff. So there's the overall judge that we all have, and we judge ourselves, we judge others, we judge circumstances. So
Mm-hmm.
the judge shows up in that way, and then we have these what he calls accomplice saboteurs. So we have this other cast of characters that can show up, and we may have different ones show up in different situations, but we tend to have favorites because of however we grew up
Mm-hmm.
or what our
Mm-hmm.
experiences were or what we developed as children as well. So the other ones include the pleaser, which we've already talked about, the hyperachiever, which shows up a lot in the business world, a lot in the entrepreneurial world, a lot in the creator world,
Mm-hmm.
right? Nothing you do is ever enough. I got to keep going. Needs to, more, 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 more. The controller, needing to either be in charge or control whatever situation, or it leads to feeling stressed or anxious. The avoider, everything's fine no matter what. We've all seen that cartoon picture of the dog sitting with the cup of coffee and its eyes are popping out of its head and the whole office is on fire and it's saying everything's fine, right?
Yes,
That's
yes.
that's a good example of the avoider. The stickler we talked about, that's kind of that tendency to need everything to be right,
Mm-hmm.
right and good. The victim, which is a victim is a universal archetype. We all have aspects of victim, that part of us that'll say, I can't because, or I'll never be able to, or these kinds of things. Why is it not happening for me? Look at everybody else has this, and why not me? This kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Restless. Um, these are the people who have 12 different projects going on at the house at one time, right? And they forget, oh, I forgot I put all that stuff out there, so we have that kind of need to shiny object syndrome. This kind of stuff
Mm-hmm.
comes from
Mm-hmm.
restless. Hyper vigilant, and then hyper rational, always kind of being on that side of explaining away or being frustrated with other people's inability to understand you, to see the point, to look at things rationally. And of course, all of these saboteurs are they're not bad or good. We can't really see them as bad or good. No archetype is bad or good, even though these sound like negative things.
Mm-hmm.
They all have wonderful aspects to them. Like there is nothing wrong with pleasing someone, or providing service to them, or being generous. It's when it becomes attached to the need to do that in order to feel worthy or valuable for
That's right.
yourself,
It's
right?
about the motivation, why
Exactly.
you're doing that behavior. So this
Yeah.
sounds related to, I heard two things. One thing is it's very similar, not same, but similar to IFS when we talk about protector parts. I'm trained
Yes.
as a somatic coach and have a background with IFS training in looking for these types of patterns, and we call them protector parts. And
Yes.
then I also heard a couple of human design
Yes.
archetypes within, especially when you were naming the multitasking one.
Yeah.
So it was interesting for me to think about, okay, I'm a manifesting generator in human design. So it's very common for me to have multiple tasks open at once, working on
Right.
multiple things. And when you said that, and I don't remember the specific name, can you remind me?
Yeah. Restless is the
The
name of that
restless.
particular one.
When you were talking about that, I was just listening with the beginner's mind thinking, I wonder if there's a little saboteur inside some of those behaviors. And I'm sure that there is, because if I'm starting a project that has nothing to do with anything I'm actually
Yeah.
targeting as a goal, then that would be a saboteur behavior. So as we learn to work with these saboteurs, how how is it the motivation that we notice, and that's how we can start to come face to face with, oh, this might be a self-sabotage pattern? Or what are some other ways we might be able to identify that we have something going on related to self-sabotage?
We want to be looking for the kind of experience that's produced by our behavior.
Ooh, say more.
So, and like I said, there's nothing wrong with wanting to achieve things. People who are a high achieving oriented, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with wanting to feel in control or taking control of the situation. There's nothing wrong with this. It's when it becomes hyper achiever, or when the experience needs to happen, or I feel anxious, stressed, angry, frustrated, depressed, jealous. So if we are doing a behavior, or from doing the behavior experience a negative emotion, then
Mm.
self-sabotage is at play. If
Ooh,
it's
okay.
not if it's not
Yeah.
bringing us joy, if it's not, like when I want to achieve excellence, that brings me joy. But if I'm trying to achieve excellence because I'm scared to death that I'm going to be rejected in the world, that's hyperachiever. I'm so afraid that I'm going to suffer. And
Mhm.
that's now why I'm doing this particular thing. Well, that's going to create stress and constriction in my system.
So could we break this down for somebody who's like, okay, I'm still back at self-sabotage. What might an example be of creating a certain behavior pattern and then realizing that you're not feeling the way that you wanted to feel?
Absolutely. Well, I'll kind of explain this like Shirzad does, because I think it's such a clear example. We talk about like whether or not negative emotions are useful. And the answer is yes, of
Hmm. Hmm.
course. If you eat a poisonous food and it makes you sick, you know not to eat that again, right? So it's important for us to have these experiences. So the example he always uses is putting your hand on the hot stove.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
when you put your hand on the hot stove, wow, ouch, that hurts, right? We just had a negative experience. We burned ourselves. And so the normal reaction would be to pull your hand away from the stove and to stop doing that.
Right.
In this particular instance, what happens for us, we'll use that as a hypothetical example. Self sabotage occurs when we put our hand on the hot stove and then leave it there. So we feel the suffering, we feel the negativity, but instead of noticing that behavior and shifting over immediately, we continue to brood in it, continue to feel it, continue to believe that the suffering is necessary. And a lot of times that can be done in the name of success, in the name of
Hmm.
acceptance, approval,
Hmm.
whatever it is. So it's basically what happens when we experience a negative emotion, and we, for whatever reason, our conscious or unconscious programming, the way our neural pathways have been well laid in these types of behaviors, we stay in that space.
Mm-hmm.
That is when it becomes, instead of just an experience that we can shift from, it becomes an experience, a negative or experience creating suffering that we unconsciously choose to stay in.
And I love that you highlighted the word unconsciously
Well, who would
choose.
consciously choose? Who would be like, "Oh, I feel horrible and I'd like to continue that." Like we
Yeah, nobody.
nobody wants to feel that way. And yet so often we do. So often we feel like we're at the bottom, we feel like we're losing, we feel like we're never enough. We feel like we can't possibly do enough, we can't win. We have these feelings and we get stuck in them. And we feel this frustration of why am I feeling like this? And this is exactly what it is. We have experienced some sort of event or circumstance or lack of not knowing something, and it has created a negative feeling for us. And we have unconsciously chosen to focus on that. And so it creates this, negative energy around us, whatever it ends up being. Like I said, stress, anxiety, frustration, anger, isolation, victimization, jealousy, whatever it is. But it is, and this is the key to it all. There's two keys. Number one, to understand it's a choice.
Mm-hmm.
We all have
Mm-hmm.
the ability to consciously choose to redirect our energy at any given moment.
Yes.
That
Yes.
that is your right. It's your birthright. It's your ability. We all possess it. You don't have to earn the right to do that or think that you have to have a certain kind of life to do that. I mean, to me, this is the key to your yes-filled life. The understanding that you have the power to choose.
That's right. So
Nobody kept me from that. I chose all of a sudden. All of a sudden.
absolutely.
Could have done
Now,
it all along.
I've been working with the subconscious mind for, well, since 2016.
Mm.
And so when I became a theta healing meditation technique practitioner, started to unpack belief systems and beliefs and begin to shift them for clients. And one of the things that I am beginning to believe is that we have subtle knowing. It's not overt, it's very subtle. We have subtle knowing of what our beliefs are. And for me, if I think about myself, it comes in the form of like a little sentence that's in the back of my mind when I'm getting ready to engage in a behavior that I know doesn't serve me. It's like a little warning flag, like, hey, are you sure
Yeah.
that's really what you want to be doing right now? And I'm wondering, when going back to you saying it's a choice. And I absolutely believe that once you make a choice to address the thing that is causing you pain, even if you aren't sure what that is, that things begin to shift.
Yes.
What is your experience with the little subtle knowing? Like it's subconscious, but
Sure.
tell me more what you think.
Sure. There's you've brought up part of what I like to refer to as smart person syndrome. I work with people who are very talented and they're very smart. And so when I say you can consciously choose to redirect your energy, smart people say, "Ha, all right, fantastic. I'm just going to redirect my energy over here and then I'm going to start doing that thing." And then they don't.
Mm-hmm.
And then they get very frustrated and they, well, two things happen. They get very frustrated. Why can't I do this? What's wrong with me? They get frustrated themselves or they get frustrated with the system. Oh, that doesn't work. Right. And it's because of these little beliefs, these beliefs that are, like I said, they create neural pathways that have been laid so strongly
Mm-hmm.
that it doesn't really matter if you have consciously decided to shift. If you have a belief working against you, that is saying the exact opposite of what you're
Mm-hmm.
now saying you want to do. And I believe these little subtle messages that you're talking about are our mind's way of trying to open that door
Mm-hmm.
to your truth. And if you have it's on two sides, right? You've got this new way of wanting to be. And if you've done the work, or if you are tapped into your intuition as you are, then those messages of what is aligned with you will tap you on the shoulder. Like you said, is that truly what you want? Is that an alignment for you? Does that truly resonate with you? Does that
Mm-hmm.
move you toward your dreams and desires? So if you've done the work, and if you're on the path to work and you've done that enough, you will get those beautiful, subtle messages coming forth for you. On the other side, if you're not quite there yet, or you haven't started that, you get the other ones. That's You'll never be able to do that. Ha. You think you're gonna be able to fall through that? You've never followed through with anything. And there's those little saboteur voices from the
Hmm.
old beliefs. So no matter how much you say you want this, until we go and do this work with those conscious but oftentimes unconscious beliefs, we don't get the pleasure and the privilege of these subtle ones that will come in and share with us our truth. Once you open that door, though, oh boy,
Oh boy.
doesn't it
So
start to show up? It's beautiful.
it's amazing. At the very beginning of my journey, like into the healing arts, into intuition, into really accepting who I am and what I'm here to do, I read a book called E Squared by Pam Grouch. She's also been a guest on the podcast. And what it's several exercises. I think it's 12 exercises of the subconscious mind. And one of them was about finding cars that were sunset beige. So I set out with the intention to find as many sunset beige cars as I could possibly find. And I went, driving around. I went to the edge of my block because I was in a cul-de-sac so that I was on the busier street just to be able to put myself in proximity to the sunset beige cars. And as the day wore on, my frustration grew because I didn't see a sunset beige car anywhere. And I was picturing that it was going to be, like a sunset. That's really what in my mind, I was sure it was going to remind me of a sunset, maybe orange or yellow or sunset beige. Well, by the end of the day, I thought, all of these other experiments have worked. Why isn't this one working? This is really strange. And so I thought to myself, I wonder if I'm looking at this wrong. I wonder if I know what color sunset beige is. And so I did a Google search and I was like, what color is sunset beige? And up came all of these images with this goldish tan. I had been seeing those cars all day. I'd
Ah.
seen hundreds of those sunset beige cars, but I was looking for orange. And if we're looking for one thing and we don't know what we're looking for, sometimes we'll think we don't see it even when it's right in front of us. In other words, the relief that we often are seeking from these self-sabotaging behaviors is often right there, and we might need to shift our perspective and ask different questions to get there.
You're making such a exemplary description of what it looks like to use two different parts of our brain. And the parts of our brain that constrict us, that attach to certain outcomes, like it needs to be this, or I can't be happy, or, like the color, this is the color, like as in your example, this is the color I'm looking for, and it's this color, but you don't even really know yet, right? You just assume, or whatever it is, that's your perspective. The parts of our brain that are attached to these self-sabotaging behaviors, there's certain parts of our brain, and when you allow yourself to open up into the example you give would use two different types of gifts that we like to talk about called explore and innovate, right? One, you got really curious about, well, wait a minute, do I even know what that is? That's
Mhm.
you now you're exploring, and then you said, okay, I'm going to look this up. I'm going to get some more information. So you kind of went into that. All right, well, let's figure out, let's innovate some things. You shifted perspective or gave yourself the opportunity to. And so you moved over into other parts of your brain. And this is exactly what happens to us when we get, and smart people, I think this is why they get so frustrated. Explain why you get frustrated in that situation, right? Because as smart people, we assume that we are going to, if we feel a negative thing, and we even say stuff like this, right? Well, just get over it. Oh, you'll be fine. Or come on, cheer up. Come on, you can do this. And it actually just makes us feel even more disheartened
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
shame Because we don't just jump over there. And the reason we don't just jump over there is because you can't teleport in your brain. You can't go from these parts of the brain that are creating this frustration, this negativity, this closed mindset, fixed mindset kind of way being over to the parts that use your, what we call sage brain, these, exploration, innovation, creativity, these kinds of things, navigation, activation over here, where you're coming from, love-based energy, so to speak, instead of fear-based energy. You can't just jump over there. And smart people think that they can do that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
when they don't do that, you can't. You got to travel a neural pathway. You got to get out of these and you got to go over here to this one right here. So smart people think they're just going to be able to stop doing this and start doing that. And when they can't do that, they get very impatient with themselves. So one of the ways that we talk about doing this is by using sensory focus. So instead of assuming you're going to jump over there because you can't, to see if we can redirect the mind through a sensory experience, kind of get us to like a neutral zone, so to
Mm-hmm.
speak.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of thinking I'm in a negative space, I'm going to get to a positive space. I'm in a negative space. I'm going to get myself to a neutral zone. So then I can go over into this more positive space. And it's obviously it's different. It's different parts of the brain, but I'm using that term to give us a general, a negative and positive. We'll just, say it like that. So things like starting to focus on a sensory sensation, like touching the palm of your hand and noticing what it feels like to touch the palm of your hand with your fingertips and putting all your attentional focus on that, or attentional focus on the breath, right? Or attentional focus on the sound that you hear. Maybe it's the sound of your own breath. Maybe it's the sound of what's in the room or beyond the room. Attentional focus to something that you look at and noticing its colors and shades and textures in a way that you really don't on a normal basis. So again, that we're trying to shift our attentional focus over to something, give ourselves something so that we have an opportunity then to switch gears in our mind and get ourselves into the place where you did, to say, well, wait a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe there's another option here. Well, maybe, and you started looking at the data. Well, I've been successful with these things. I wonder what's going on here, as opposed to just letting that frustration build and build and build and then getting frustrated and throwing the book across the room and saying, this doesn't work, right? And feeling like you can't because there was one thing
Mm-hmm.
that kind of didn't have that perspective for you.
The thing that it makes me think of when you talk about moving from a negative space to a neutral space so that you can move then to a positive space is the teaching of Abraham Hicks, the spiritual
Yeah,
teacher.
yes,
They say you can't solve the problem from the same energy that you're in the
exactly.
problem. The solution is
Exactly.
at a different vibration. It's the same concept, only rooted in science, which I
Yes.
love that you root all of this in science. So for the listener who's like, wait, Brenda, you've been saying things like this, but you haven't rooted it in science, just know that the science is out there and you have a gift for us. Can you talk about that?
I do. Yes. I have a little gift that I put together called 6 Simple Steps for Overcoming Overwhelm and Increasing Your Income. And one of those steps is to identify those saboteurs. I give you a way that you can connect with information and do that, an assessment you can take to actually do that, and then 5 more ways, because I think this is where we start to realize, hey, the only thing, and this was my this was my key to my yes filled life, right? That I am the limiter.
Mm-hmm.
I am the
Mm-hmm.
limiter. So if I want to see a change, then the work I need to do is actually not out there, it's in here. And then the work out there is going to be able to align with that.
Yeah.
So that's what we're looking for here. If you want to overcome the things that are stopping you, if you want to get through the obstacles, if you are trying to do things that are going to increase and your finances and come into flourishing for yourself. And by the way, even if that's not one of your goals, how we do money is how you do everything. So
Mm-hmm.
you will
Mm-hmm.
see keys in your money habits. Even if it's money's not an issue for you, you will see issues in that come up in everything else. This is a simple place to start, because we have to get our mind into a place where it recognizes, oh, this is easy for me.
Mm-hmm.
I can do this.
Yes.
And so once we're there, then we can take that next step. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much we want something if our mind isn't on board yet. So these are simple starts, easy ways. It doesn't really matter where you are on your path. Even if you've heard some of the things that are in this guide that I'm going to share with you, um, if you're not experiencing these kinds of things from a place of joy, then chances are you may be stuck in smart person syndrome, which means but you're not necessarily implementing for yourself.
I love that. And so I will link that in the show notes. Go check that out. For the person who's like, okay, I kind of want to just play around and dip my toe. And first of all, I want to name that, and this comes up for somebody who is a high achiever or really, really good at what you do, that you probably don't want to look at your saboteurs. There may be a part of you that's like, I don't have self-sabotage.
Sure.
And I just want to name and normalize that when I first even looked at Kris's work, that part in me came up, well, self-sabotage. Maybe we don't need to talk about that. And then I looked deeper and I was like, but wait, I've cleared a ton of my self-sabotaging behaviors. And like most things in my life, the work is never done. Like there's always new levels. So, it's not like the same as it was for me when I started this work in 2007 and working with different parts, but there's still work to be done. Do you find that for yourself too, that you're
Oh my
continuing to do this
goodness.
work?
Well, yeah, I mean, you made me laugh just a minute ago inside because, the first time I started doing real deep personal development work, I discovered that one of my shadows in the gene key system, which taps into human design as well, as opposed to other things, was half-heartedness. And that was my exact reaction. Oh, I'm not half-hearted. Look at me. I'm running my own business and doing my own thing. And look at how could I be half-hearted? And the more I sat with that idea, the more I realized that every time something didn't have the outcome that I wanted to crawl under a rock and quit. I didn't, but that's how I felt.
Mm-hmm,
And so I
mm-hmm.
started to realize, oh. And then as far as this particular work, here I am 10 years later, and coming into this type of work, same type of thing. Look at all the work I've done. And yet at the same time, looking at this work with an open mind and open heart completely changed my life.
Mm-hmm.
It
Mm-hmm.
it completely it transformed my relationships,
Yes.
and really created just beauty in relationships where there had been tension and stress. It absolutely improved my own appreciation of myself and the work that I do. It helped me to significantly lower levels of stress and anxiety of having as being the sole provider and having that pressure of you're the one who's responsible,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
for everything here. This work helped me to understand that in a different way, than the other work that I had done, which was still very valuable. But I think this was what ties into what you're saying, that there are different ways that we can say the same thing. Um, and I think it's part of our job as lifelong learners not to go from that place of restless to where, like, I need to know more, I need to know more, I need to know more when I haven't even investigated what I have in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
But from that place of I want to open myself up to as many perspectives to understand myself and others as best and as deeply as I can. Because I think that's what allows us to create these shifts. That's what allows us to, open ourselves up in ways that we intellectually know are possible,
That's right.
but until we embody it, which I think is so much of the work, why your work is so beautiful about showing people and helping them understand how to embody
Mm,
their
thank
truth.
you.
That until we do that, it stays in that intellectual place, and
Mm-hmm.
we're not actually giving ourselves the gift of what that knowledge brings.
As you were talking, it made me realize that I think my saboteurs have changed over the years. I think I'm working with different ones. In
Entirely possible.
in early life, my saboteur would be, well, if it's not a sure thing, I'm not going to try because like I don't want to audition for this prestigious choir if it's not a sure thing. And so I would be so over prepared for any audition that it was like a no-brainer because I just waited. So like for example, I was 16 playing in a philharmonic, a statewide philharmonic with professional adult musicians. And so that's a little extreme. Like not everybody needs to do that. But if I were to audition to go to a college where I would be a professional musician, that was a no. Like in my system, that was like, I'm not going to do that because I'm not going to be told by such and such conservatory that I'm not good
Yeah.
enough. And so that saboteur has taken a break. She's gone to rest. I can still sometimes feel her when I get ready to do something really big and she'll be like, "But wait, are you sure you actually want to apply for that thing?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "Yes, I am." And I think now the probably the saboteur that I work with the most is the high achieving one.
Yeah. This
I
is
think
very, very common. Same thing for me. My pleaser would have been one in the past for me that I really would have gone overboard with, and nowadays, same thing, hyperachiever much more at the top of my list. And anyone who has taken the courageous step into working for themselves, coming into their own work, this tends to show up quite a bit, and it's so important that we remind ourselves there's nothing wrong with, I love that quote by Harriet Breaker. It's something along, I'm going to mess it up, but it's something along the lines of, achieving excellence. How, it's wonderful to achieve excellence, but perfectionism is demoralizing. So,
yes,
shifting from perfectionism to excellence and understanding that high achieving doesn't mean sacrificing yourself as a person in the name of success. Like that's not, to me at least, I'm not going to speak for everybody, but to me that's not success.
that's right. I agree.
Success is not creating an outward picture that looks a certain way at the sacrifice of yourself. I mean, what's the point? What's the point of all this work, right? We're here to enjoy life. So you made a really great point that it's important for us all to realize that we all have saboteurs. This is not a, well, you have them and this person doesn't kind of thing. We all have saboteurs. And the goal, I think this is important for hyperachievers too. The goal is not to quote unquote get rid of them because it's part of who you are. The goal is to help them feel safe
That's right.
so that you can allow those voices to be softer and quieter when they show up, as opposed to running the show for you.
That's right. Because sometimes they have merit. Sometimes, like the voice that comes up when I get ready to apply to be a guest on a major podcast might be suggesting that I look at my email a little bit more closely.
Yeah.
And so sometimes there's merit, but I don't let
Well,
her
yeah,
stop me,
that's the
you know?
difference between vigilance and hypervigilance.
Yes.
Right? Vigilance is great. Hey, like maybe don't step out in the street when there's cars. That's vigilance. That's important, right? But to never go near a street because there might be cars. That's hypervigilance,
Yeah. Oh, that's
right?
so good.
So this is just talking about what happens when we let those survival-based things that are trying to protect us, they're just there. It's just like the ego. They just want you to be okay. They're not trying to make you suffer, but oftentimes that's exactly what happens.
Mhm.
We end up suffering in the name of trying to keep ourselves safe and we don't even know we're doing it. So it's not the qualities, it's our exaggeration of the qualities that lead to suffering that we really need to investigate and learn how to work with and learn how to shift our mind over so that we can allow those things to help us as
Mm,
opposed to stop us.
so good. Kris, how can people connect with you? Where can they find you?
Oh, you're welcome to check out my website. You can go look at my little saboteur characters if you want. My website is just my name, krisdriskill.com. I'm looking the show notes because it's an unusual spelling. It's got it's all with K's. So
I'll be sure to link it. Yes.
thank you. And then you can check me out over on LinkedIn as well. My full name, Christina Driskill, is on my LinkedIn. Also, my Facebook is under my business name, which is Gilded Within. And I named it that for exactly the reasons we've been talking about today. That when we create that value on the inside, it allows everything that we want to do in the world to flourish on the outside. So to
Ooh,
me, it starts with that.
That's so beautiful. Kris, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, my absolute pleasure. Thank you. You are a joy and amazing. And I'm thrilled to spend this time with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I absolutely loved this episode with Kris, and I hope that you did too. And, when I think about the different kind of saboteurs that come up for me, it was really interesting because I could feel a part of myself relating to every single saboteur that Kris talked about. And I'm wondering if you experienced the same thing. And so be sure that you click the links in the show notes to go make sure that you're following Kris and you're connected with her, because I'm telling you what, she's got some really fun things coming down the pike, and you are going to just love even looking at the homepage of her website. I don't want to spoil it for you, but I just want to tell you it is worth your time to go check it out, because you're going to get a little sneak peek into each of her personal saboteurs. Remember how she said that each one had a name? Yeah, go check out her website so that you can see those for yourself. Remember that we have the 3-day chakra workshop coming up May 20, 21, 22, and you can learn more by going to brendawinkle.com/chakra. And that there is a new podcast launching. That's right. The Table of Woo podcast goes live on May 5th, 2025. Hello, and welcome to the Table of Woo podcast, the place for lightworkers, mystics, healers, intuitives, empaths, and seekers. I'm your host, Brenda Winkle. I'm a psychic medium, mentor, somatic coach, educator, and energy healer who's been doing this work since 2015. Here at the Table of Woo, you'll deepen your spiritual connection, enhance your self-awareness, elevate your well-being, and empower yourself to live in your full alignment. Here at the Table of Woo, we normalize spiritual gifts and treat them with reverence and respect while having a really good time. This show is your sanctuary, a space where intuition leads, healing happens, and you learn to create a life that feels as good on the inside as it looks on the outside. This is the place where you can ask the questions you've always had so you can start to feel safer using your own spiritual gifts. Start by understanding what's impacting your energy and download your free energy audit at brendawinkle.com/audit. Whether you're building a heart-led business, you're just curious about crystals and oracle cards, you're seeing spirits, you want to reclaim your energy, or you're navigating your next chapter, this is your invitation to come home to yourself. Grab your seat at the Table of Woo podcast. You can subscribe to the Table of Woo podcast wherever you're listening to this podcast so that when the podcast episodes begin to drop in May, you won't miss a thing. Thank you so much for listening to Your Guest-Filled Life. It means a lot to me that you're here. If you loved this episode, would you please give it a rating and a review and share it with someone you care about? Thank you so much for being here. Bye for now. Until next time.